When a woman is attached but terrified of revealing it, her world becomes a silent, private observatory, and you are the sole subject of her study. This isn't a casual interest. It's a deep, almost involuntary absorption. She doesn't just hear your words. She deciphers them. A simple, "I'm tired," isn't taken at face value. She sifts through her memory of your recent interactions, wondering if it's a physical fatigue, or if something is weighing on your mind that you aren't sharing. She becomes an archivist of your existence, cataloging details you considered trivial, your preference for coffee over tea, the song you mentioned liking weeks ago, the name of a childhood friend you brought up in passing. You might forget you ever said these things, but she hasn't. She stores these fragments not as random facts, but as precious pieces of a puzzle. She is quietly, desperately trying to solve the puzzle of you. This intense focus is the bedrock of her hidden investment, and it manifests most clearly in her hyper-analysis of your digital and conversational footprints. That casual text you sent in the middle of the day, she will reread it more times than she would ever confess, parsing your punctuation, the timing of your message, and the specific emojis you used. A short, innocuous conversation you had before parting ways will be replayed in her mind later, dissected for tone, for a fleeting expression that crossed your face, for a choice of words that might carry a hidden meaning. To the outside world, these are minor, forgettable interactions. To her, they are critical data points that either confirm her hope that you feel the same or fuel her fear that you are pulling away. This is how you know she's already attached, because she has elevated these small exchanges to a level of significance that an unattached person would find bewildering. Beneath this silent scrutiny, however, lies a constant internal battle between desire and fear. On the surface, she may play it cool, acting distant, or pretending she's not that invested. She might deliberately wait to reply to a message to appear less eager, or downplay her excitement when she sees you. But this outward calm is a carefully constructed performance. Behind that mask, her emotions are running a marathon. Every interaction is weighed, every word measured for its potential impact. She lives in a silent push and pull inside her own mind, constantly questioning whether she is revealing too much or too little. This heightened state of awareness is exhausting, but she cannot turn it off. You matter more than she's willing to reveal. And so every micro-interaction becomes a scene in the private story she is writing about the two of you. A story filled with both hope and a deep-seated terror of being discovered, while her words are carefully curated and her tone meticulously controlled. Her body speaks a far more honest and instinctual language. This is the domain of the subconscious, where her hidden attachment leaks out in a series of subtle, unguarded physical betrayals. She may consciously be telling herself to play it cool, but her body is already leaning in, already seeking proximity. You'll notice it in the way her posture orients itself toward you in a crowded room, as if you are her magnetic north. Even when engaged in a group conversation, the angle of her shoulders, the point of her feet, will often subtly shift in your direction, creating a private, unspoken axis between you. This isn't a calculated move. It's a physical manifestation of her inward pull, a silent signal that you are the center of her gravitational field in that moment. The dance of her eyes is another profound giveaway. She will hold your gaze just a heartbeat too long, creating a fleeting, intimate bridge that transcends the casual. But this connection is often followed by a swift, almost reflexive glance away, as if she's been caught stealing a secret. In that prolonged look, you see her genuine interest and curiosity. In the hurried retreat, you witness her fear of being discovered. You might catch her watching you when she thinks you're distracted, her expression soft and unguarded, only for it to snap back to a carefully neutral mask the instant she senses your attention. These micro moments of visual contact are the punctuation marks in her silent confession, emphasizing what her pride will not allow her to say. Perhaps the most telling physical revelations are the ones involving touch. Because she cannot openly seek connection, she engineers it under the guise of accident or casual familiarity. A brush of her hand against yours as she passes you a drink. A light touch on your forearm to emphasize a point in conversation. or the fleeting contact of her knee against yours under a table, these are not random occurrences. They are deliberate, yet deniable attempts to bridge the physical gap. The true sign of her attachment, however, lies in the aftermath. If you were to acknowledge the touch, she would likely downplay it immediately, brushing it off with a laugh or a casual, "Oh, sorry," a clear attempt to shield the vulnerability that the gesture exposed. This contradiction is the core of the betrayal. The body's honest reach for closeness, followed by the mind's panicked retreat into nonchalance. A woman who is truly unattached doesn't consider these touches enough to need an excuse for them. But a woman who is secretly attached is hyper-aware of every point of contact, precisely because each one carries the weight of a meaning she is terrified to name. As the silent weight of her attachment grows, it creates an internal pressure that must find a release. Unable to confess her feelings directly, she engages in a series of subtle, often confusing behaviors that are not games in the malicious sense, but rather a complex system of self-protection. This is the stage of testing, a precarious dance where she measures your investment by orchestrating small scenarios to gauge your reaction. She might suddenly delay her responses to messages that she would have once answered immediately, or she might adopt a cooler, more distant tone for a day. On the surface, it appears as inconsistency, but beneath it lies a desperate experiment. She is pulling away to see if you will notice, if you will care, if you will lean in to close the distance she created. In her mind, if you pull away completely, it confirms her deepest fear, that her investment was one-sided and that showing her true feelings would have led to rejection. But if you remain present, calm, and unfazed by her fluctuations, it provides a silent, powerful reassurance that you are a safe harbor for her. Vulnerability. This self-protection also manifests in her search for reassurance, which is always cloaked in layers of indirectness. She will rarely ask, "Do you like me?" Instead, she will fish for validation using humor and sarcasm as her shields. A comment like, "You're probably too busy talking to other girls to remember me," or "I'm sure you'll forget all about me once you start your new job," may be delivered with a laugh, but they are laced with genuine insecurity. These are not accusations. They are poorly disguised pleas for you to contradict her. She is offering you an opportunity to dismantle her fears without her having to openly admit they exist. A woman who is truly unattached has no need to seek this kind of validation. Her playful digs are a coded language, and the subtext is always the same. "I care if I lose you, and I need a sign that you would care." 2. This entire pattern is a defense mechanism against the terrifying vulnerability that attachment brings. The push and pull is the external reflection of an internal civil war. One part of her is desperate to step forward, to show you just how much she feels, to relax into the connection she craves. The other part is screaming in panic, reminding her of past hurts, the risk of humiliation, and the potential loss of power and dignity. The cold withdrawal is her fear taking the wheel. The subsequent return to warmth is her desire cautiously re-emerging. She is trapped between the longing to expose her heart and the primal instinct to protect it. The very inconsistency that you find baffling is, in fact, the most honest proof of her deepening attachment. If she didn't care, there would be no internal conflict, and her behavior would be effortlessly, consistently neutral. The turmoil itself is the evidence that she is already emotionally entangled. Fighting a battle between her desire for connection and her terror of the cost, when a woman's hidden attachment takes root, it begins to weave itself into the very fabric of her daily life and her vision of the future. This is no longer just about observing you in the present. It is about subconsciously testing and building a world that includes you. Her curiosity sharpens, but its focus shifts from who you are now to who you will become. She will ask about your career ambitions, your dreams for the next 5 years, or your thoughts on family and home, not as polite conversation, but as a quiet, urgent evaluation. She is no longer just collecting data points about your personality. She is holding those points up against her own life map, measuring for alignment, checking to see if her dreams could plausibly travel alongside yours. This isn't about being nosy. It is a strategic, heartfelt assessment of long-term compatibility. all conducted under the casual guise of simple interest. This weaving-in process continues through a quiet adoption of your interests and rhythms. She might suddenly develop a curiosity for a hobby you're passionate about, asking for book recommendations if you love to read, or looking up the rules of a sport you follow. If you mention a favorite band, you might find she's listened to their album. These are not grand gestures, but subtle acts of alignment. She is, often without conscious intent, trying your world on for size, seeking points of connection that allow her to feel closer to you and to imagine herself as a natural part of your landscape. It is her way of inching closer without having to make a declarative statement, of building shared ground, so that if the relationship were to become official, it would feel like a natural progression rather than a sudden leap. Most tellingly, she begins to engage in future pacing, dropping lighthearted, deniable hints that project you into her tomorrow. A comment like, "We should totally go there someday," when seeing a travel documentary, or "You'd have to see that with me" about a movie trailer, are not idle remarks. They are small, speculative windows into a world where the two of you are a we with a shared timeline. She keeps it playful to give herself plausible deniability. If you react poorly, she can easily brush it off as a joke. But the underlying motive is profound. She is quietly weaving you into the narrative of her future, testing the waters to see if you might envision her in yours. This tendency to imagine you as a lasting fixture is one of the strongest signs of hidden attachment. Her mind is already comfortable with your presence in the long term, even as her words insist on the casual nature of the present. She is building a story in her head where you are the co-star. In every shared interest and hinted at future plan is another sentence written in that silent, hopeful narrative. The careful fortress of composure, built brick by brick, with pride and self-protection, cannot withstand the internal pressure of a deepening heart forever. There comes a tipping point where the fear of losing you becomes a more potent, more immediate terror than the fear of being exposed. This is the stage of the crumbling facade, where the mask of indifference she has worn so diligently begins to slip, crack, and finally fall away, revealing the raw, unfiltered vulnerability beneath. The conflict is no longer a quiet internal struggle, but a visible war waged in her behavior, and the signs become impossible to ignore. You will see her composure break in real time. A conversation that turns slightly personal might cause her to fumble with her phone, her words becoming slightly rushed or tripping over themselves. The once steady eye contact now holds a new softness, a hint of nervousness, a plea for understanding that her lips refuse to form into words. The calm, collected woman you knew begins to seem subtly frayed at the edges, not from a lack of strength, but because the emotional weight she is carrying has simply grown too heavy to hide. Behind casual gestures and lighthearted banter, her actions begin to scream what her voice still will not. The strategic delays in texting, once a calculated test, has become genuine struggles as she drafts and deletes messages, her desire to connect battling her instinct to retreat. She may send a late-night message, something simple yet profoundly revealing, like "Are you awake?" or "I was just thinking about that conversation we had." These moments feel like dangerous slips to her, moments of weakness she will likely regret by the cold light of morning. But to you, they are the first clear cracks in the dam, undeniable glimpses of a true state of mind. These impulsive reaches are not accidents. They are her emotions finally overwhelming her defenses. The sheer consistency of her presence in your life also becomes a silent confession. She prioritizes you instinctively, rearranging her schedule to accommodate a chance to see you, responding to your messages with a speed and attentiveness she doesn't grant others. She is, in 1,000 small ways, reorganizing her world to orbit around you, all while her words may still weakly insist on her independence and casual interest. This internal war between her retreating pride and her advancing emotions creates wilder, more extreme contradictions. She might pull away dramatically after a moment of particular closeness, ignoring you for a day or two in a last-ditch attempt to reclaim a sense of control and self-preservation. But this withdrawal is now half-hearted and short-lived. The pull she feels is stronger than her fear, and she always returns, often with even more warmth and engagement than before, as if to subconsciously apologize for her absence. This cycle of flight and return is no longer a test. It is a confession. It is the behavior of someone who cannot stay away, no matter how hard she tries. Her heart is actively vetoing the commands of her frightened mind. The final, most undeniable stage of this surrender is when she begins to voice her vulnerability. Not in a grand dramatic confession, but in small, monumental admissions that cost her a great deal of courage to utter. She can no longer bear the ambiguity of silence. She will start to say things she once thought she would never dare to voice. A simple, "I missed you today," offered after you've been apart. A worried, "Is everything okay?" "I was thinking about you when you seemed distant." A direct, albeit hesitant, question like, "Do you ever think about that night?" These phrases may seem small, but for her, they represent the collapse of the final wall. She is no longer just hinting or testing. She is actively seeking the reassurance and connection she has craved all along. The truth, which was once communicated only through silent observation, unconscious body language, and self-protective games, now finally finds its way into her words. The battle is over. Her attachment, long since a settled fact in her heart, is now laid bare, and her silence is revealed for what it always was, not indifference, but a profound and paralyzing fear that has finally been conquered by the even more profound need to not lose you.